It is 4:30 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting of the Design Review and Preservation Board to order. Will the recording secretary please call roll?
Board Member Anderson. Board Member Ennis.
Here.
Board Member Fagent.
Here.
There you go. Board Member Schwartz.
Here.
Board Member Sharon will not be joining us today. Board Member Weigel.
Here.
And Chair Jones-Carter. Chair Jones-Carter.
Here.
All righty, thank you. Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Sharon.
Item 2, remote participation, and we have none. Item 3, approval of minutes, none. Public comment. We are now taking public comment on item number 4, non-agenda matters. This is the time when any person may address the board on matters not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of this committee. Recording secretary, can you please provide instructions to the public?
Absolutely. If you are in chambers and wish to make a comment, please make your way to the podium and please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes for your comment and a countdown timer will alert you at the conclusion of that period. Not seeing anyone in chambers, I believe we can move on.
Item 5.1, statement of purpose. The Design Review and Preservation Board serves as the city's authority on design review and historic cultural preservation. The board is charged with considering the location, design, site plan configuration, and the overall effect of proposed projects upon surrounding properties and the city in general, as well as considering proposed alterations to properties within the city's general plan. Within the city's preservation district and designated landmarks. The board shall compare proposed state projects to the general plan, any applicable specific plan, applicable zoning code standards and requirements, consistency of the project within the city's design guidelines, architectural criteria for special areas, the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties and other applicable city and state requirements. Item 5.2, board member reports. Are there any board member reports? Seeing none. Item 5.3, other, we have none at this time. Item 6, department reports.
Yes, hi, I'm Supervising Planner Susie Murray. I supervise the current development team and I am the staff liaison for the Design Review and Preservation Board. It's a tough one to get used to. So welcome, I'm super happy to be here for the first meeting of this board and I want to thank you all again for accepting the nomination. I really truly mean that. It's nice to have a new board here and I'm excited going forward. I want to talk about we're going to have some training. So since we're in training mode, I thought that I would talk just a little bit about board member reports when you see board member reports on the agenda. There will be times when you will attend meetings or ribbon cutting ceremonies, other events like that, or go to trainings. One of you will soon be selected to participate on the Waterways Advisory Committee. When you have those events happening outside this board, we really want you to report back. And not just, I attended this training, but kind of give a quick rundown of what it entailed. So, or what you learned, maybe something that would help the other members of the board. So there's my little tidbit of training for you today. And as always, you know where to get a hold of me, and you can always call and ask questions. I also, earlier today, we sent out an inquiry, a query to the board to find out if y'all would be available on both June 5th and June 26th. June 19th would be generally the normal date, the third Thursday of the month, but I just learned that that is a holiday for the city. We'll be closed down. It's Juneteenth, and so we will still have another. It looks like we're going to have a second regular meeting, but it will be bumped out to the fourth week instead of the third. We have a couple of items. If we can get them on to the June 5th, we will, and avoid that second meeting, but it's a stretch right now. So if you could all just respond to that. We need, for one of the items, it's the missing middle housing. We need to have a full board because just about everybody on the board is going to have a conflict. So we're going to have to go through a process where we select, you know, who's here or everybody's here. I don't really know how that's going to work, okay? So what I need is a full board. So there's got to be a date when all board members are available. We're really hoping that's either June 5th or June 26th or both. So let me see. At the
Hey,
next
Susie?
meeting.
Susie, not to interrupt you, could you explain to the new folks why we might have a conflict of interest on that particular item? Because it's based on...
It's based on the conflict of it.
Yeah,
You know,
I know
actually,
why, but yeah, they may know why.
Yeah, let me finish. And this is actually going to be addressed in Ashley's presentation, the conflict of interest. It's not? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So the conflict of interest is that this is a citywide policy, missing middle. I don't know anything about it, but it's going to be citywide. All of you are probably going to live within 500 feet of some property that's affected by this. And that's why there may be a conflict of interest for everybody. So in a case like that, we need everybody here. So, and I don't know the process after that.
I would suggest that we give you some more information on this as it comes up. You will essentially just have to draw names, but we'll send out a longer explanation of what to expect on that day and an explanation of the conflict. Because it is different than a general plan. There's like a public generally exception where everybody can vote, and this one is a little bit different. It doesn't impact all properties, it's just certain areas of the city. So we'll get you some info on that, but yes, please do be here because for the drawing the names out of a hat, we need to have you all here, and then essentially, even though you have a conflict, you are forced to go ahead and vote because otherwise we could never vote on the item. So it's all on the up and up and legal, and we'll give you the info.
How nice to have an attorney sitting next to me to explain that. Thank you. Let's see, there's also at the next meeting on June 5th, we're going to be asking for nominations for 2 positions, nominations/volunteers. One is for the vice chair for this board, and the other one is for someone to attend the Waterways Advisory Committee meetings, to be a part of that committee. We always have a representative from our appointed boards, so there you have it. If you want to be nominated, if that's something that you want to do, you can go ahead and you can let me know in advance. You can be prepared to just say, I'm interested at the next meeting. And one of your co-board members will nominate you, I hope. So, so anyways, that's just a heads up for what's coming up in the next meeting, and a couple concept design reviews, hopefully. And that's it for my department reports.
Thank you. I'd like to open public comment.
Seeing no one in chambers, I don't believe we'll have public comment.
We're closing public comment. Item 7, statements of abstention. Are there any abstentions on item 9.1? Seeing none. Item 8, consent items, we have none. 9, scheduled items. We're moving on to the first scheduled item, a presentation of Rosenberg's Rule of Order training, presented by Ashley Crocker.
And we're just going to get her presentation up.
All right, and while they do that, I'm Ashley Crocker. I'm Assistant City Attorney, and I work primarily for the Planning and Economic Development Department. I staff a number of boards and commissions throughout the city, and I will be staffing your board. So I will not always be here. I'm typically here on a request basis, so feel free to make the request. And I'm sorry Susie wanted to talk about conflicts. That's a very exciting topic. There is a longer presentation that's on the city's website. I think that link went out today or yesterday, tomorrow. So be sure to check your email, because you can tune in to the 2 or 2.5 hour presentation by the city clerk and city attorney that will cover Rosenberg's, and it also covers the conflicts, the Brown Act, and the Public Records Act. And they have the IT folks, have set it up so that you can just go to the section that you want to listen to. You don't necessarily have to listen to the whole thing at once. So you can just jump to conflicts if you're really into it that day and check that out. So today we're only talking about Rosenberg's Rules of Order, which actually was created by a judge, David Rosenberg. And just for fun today, I watched David Rosenberg himself give his presentation on his own rules. That's also a pretty good watch if you are interested. He really gets way into the weeds on things that I sincerely hope never happen before this board, but it is pretty interesting. So anyway, he created these rules to create what he considered to be an easier alternative to Robert's Rules of Order, which help everybody to run an orderly meeting. Robert's rules are very long. I think they're like over 200 pages, and it's just a lot. So this judge gave us these rules, and the council has adopted these rules. So let's do this. I know everybody's really excited. So these rules establish order and process really to just run efficient meetings. And Susie's on it over here.
It's not advancing.
Well, in addition to Rosenberg's rules, I'll just say that every board and commission is also guided by your own procedures and regulations and rules that are adopted in accordance with the zoning code. And the Design Review and Preservation Board is governed by zoning code 20-60060, among some other sections. So now I'll just get on with it. The rules, Rosenberg's rules are guided by 4 principles, which are here. And the rules should establish order, should be clear, should be user-friendly, and should enforce the will of the majority while protecting the rights of the minority. Next slide, please. For a quorum, so you must have a quorum to conduct a meeting. And for your board, that would be 4 board members present. The body can lose a quorum at some time during the meeting. Sometimes a member will leave, they'll get called away, or there may be a time when, due to a conflict, they have to recuse themselves. And if a person leaves and you're only down to 3 and you lose a quorum, you can no longer conduct business. And I know that sounds like a simple rule, but believe it or not, somewhat recently we had a meeting occur and a quorum did not show up, and the meeting continued on without a quorum. So really it was technically not a meeting, but they did conduct some business in any event. So just pay attention to the members. If you've got 4 present and one has to recuse, then you would have no quorum. And when that happens, then you can either continue the meeting to a later date, or if somebody just has to leave to take an urgent phone call and you think they'll be back, you guys could hang out for 15 minutes and wait for them to come back and then reconvene. And again, the rules on the quorum are also in the zoning code in 20-6060H, where it specifically says that for your board, a quorum will be 4 people will constitute a quorum. And that's about it on quorum. Thank you. So the basic procedure for meetings is 10 steps that Mr. Rosenberg has set forth for us all to follow. They're pretty straightforward, and generally when I have my meeting, I just have my 10 steps right in front of me, and I know that the recording secretaries prepare scripts as well. Basically, the first one is the chair announces the agenda item. So go ahead and call the item, and you ask for abstentions or recusals. And there is a difference between abstentions and recusals, and we finally have it added on here, so you'll ask for abstentions and recusals. An abstention is basically if you don't want to vote on the item for whatever reason, and you don't need to disclose the reason. A recusal is when you actually have a conflict or an appearance of a conflict where you are precluded from voting on the matter. So say you have property that's located within 500 feet of the project. You can't vote on that project. You have to recuse. And there are specific rules in that instance where you need to come and then you disclose publicly on the record what your conflict is. So those are two very different actions and should be treated very differently. And when you recuse, then you actually have to leave the chambers and you are barred from participating. And you don't count for a quorum, and a host of other things. So it is an important distinction. Generally, I've only had people recuse. I've never actually encountered an abstention, although back in the day, I remember the council used to abstain for various reasons. During this time, too, the chair will also ask for ex parte disclosures, if applicable, and that is for quasi-judicial proceedings, which many of yours will be quasi-judicial proceedings, I think probably the most of them. And what that means is that you're applying generally like the city's rules, zoning code, design guidelines to a particular project, to a person. So it's almost like, it's quasi-judicial because they're saying it's almost like you're in court. And you make your decision based upon the evidence in the record. And so the ex parte disclosures is basically saying, hey, if you've heard anything outside of the record that everybody has, you know, you've been talking to someone and they told you something that nobody else would know, the members of the public wouldn't know, then you have to disclose that. And that gets back to just principles of due process and a fair hearing so that the applicant and any opposition parties all have the benefit of knowing what you know, and you all have the benefit of knowing what each other knows. So generally speaking, when they ask for the ex parte disclosures, you will just, generally people just say, I either met with the applicant or I met with the neighbors, disclose who you met with, if you visited the site, and then follow that up with, did you learn anything that is not otherwise available to the public in the staff report? So it's generally pretty quick, but it is very important. And so be mindful when you are talking to people. You're welcome to meet with the applicants, you're welcome to meet with the neighbors, but if there is anything that you felt needed to be disclosed, then you would bring that to the meeting. On to number 2, there will be a report on the item, so your staff member will present the overview of the item and as well give the recommendation of staff. At this time, then, number 3, the chair can invite the members to ask questions of the staff member. And this is really should be for technical questions and clarifications. This is not where you engage in your debate back and forth on the merits of the project. So just something technical, you know, Susie, can you explain X, Y, and Z? And then you will get into the details when you get into your debate. After that, you will open it up, the chair will open up for public comment, and the chair can also decide time limits for speakers. Generally, it's 3 minutes. There have been a number of times over the years where there have been just, you know, packed council chambers, and so the chair can at that point decide to limit it to, usually we go to 2 minutes if there's a good number of people. Some chairs, and Mr. Rosenberg likes to ask the audience to raise their hand if they plan on giving a comment to help you to make a determination as to whether or not you'd like to limit that to 2 minutes. It's usually nice to let people know as early on as you can for the agenda item because a lot of them have scripted their 3-minute speech. So then you close the public comment, and then you move on to make a motion. So the chair will invite a member of the body to make a motion to approve, amend, or deny the item. Then you have to have somebody second the motion. And sometimes it feels awkward that you're making a motion before you're entering into debate, but you're putting the motion on the floor so that then that can start the debate. So that's really how you signal to your board members and you signal to the public, okay, now this is the motion before us and this is what we're going to talk about, and now we're going to get into our back and forth. I already said that. Let me get the second. And then the chair just needs to ensure that the body understands the motion on the floor. Typically, that's pretty straightforward. I think that gets more involved when you have multiple motions on the floor and you want to just clarify after the third motion has been made, the chair would say, now the motion that's before the body is X, just to make sure that you all know what you're talking about. And then you go ahead and invite discussion of the motion. And this then is where you discuss and debate the item. And also for the chair to make sure that all the members of the body have the opportunity to speak. And generally speaking, it's good to, if somebody's going 2 and 3 times, to just check back and make sure that everyone has a chance. And some bodies will actually limit the amount of time on debate. I've not seen that done at any of ours. But if things are getting squirrely, you can always consider that as an option. Then the body votes, and then the chairperson or the secretary, and I'm not sure how you guys will do it here, but then you announce the results of the vote. So the vote was 6-1 to approve the project, with board member so-and-so voting no. And then that just lets everybody know clearly what has happened before you can move on to the next item. And then we don't have a slide on this, but I just wanted to talk briefly about the role of the chair. It's really the role of the chair to understand and apply Rosenberg's rules. You call the meeting to order, you make sure that the meeting moves along, you manage public comments, enforce the rules, and typically you provide your comments last, kind of have the last word on it, and take somewhat of a less active role in debate up front and let your fellow members really go through all their comments first. And then to also make sure that you don't allow back and forth discussion with the public. And again, that sounds straightforward, but it has happened on a number of times, and all of a sudden you'll get people up here yelling to you guys down here, and then you guys are yelling back, and then it just, it creates a lot of chaos. And in that instance, we actually had to take a small break and let everybody kind of calm down. But when members of the public give their comments also, after the comment period closes, then when you bring it back to your board, it is always a good idea for the chair typically to say, okay, I've taken down all of the public comments and I'd like to go through those, maybe group them in categories, and then that's where you can have staff help answer those questions so that you are engaging and acknowledging the public comments, but not in a back and forth live during public comment period. All right, motions. So the basic motion is just basically, I move X. So for an example, we would say, I move that we set up a finance committee of 7 members to audit the city attorney's office, just for fun. Then you could also have a motion to amend. So that's the basic motion. So the motion on the floor right now is a 7-member committee to do the audit. Then someone says, well, I think it should be 10 members. Well, that then would be a motion to amend, because that takes the basic motion and it just amends it in a small way. It's not a new motion, it's not a huge change, but it's something, it's still the basic motion, but you're going to tweak it a little bit. So maybe they would say, I want to make a motion to amend to have the finance committee of 10 members to audit the city attorney's office. Then you might have someone decide they want to do a substitute motion. So the substitute motion is one that replaces the underlying motions. So the person might say, well, I want to move instead to hire a CPA and not conduct an audit at all this year. So that's not just changing your original motion, that's a completely new motion. So that one replaces it and moots the other motions underneath. Whereas the motion to amend, if you make the motion to amend, then you have to have, so I make the motion to have 10 members. Then you have to have a majority vote on that, say, okay, that passes. Then you still move back to the basic motion as amended. So it's a 2-step process, right? So you all agree, yes, we'll amend it. Then you go back to the basic, okay, the basic motion as amended is now that we are going to have a finance committee of 10 members to audit the city attorney's office. and then you would vote on that. So it's a two-step process to get to your vote on an amendment. And then there's a motion to continue, which is just also a majority vote. You can always have a motion to hear the item at a later date. If it's to a date certain, then the city doesn't have to post new notices. And if it's not to a date certain, which it doesn't always work out that way, then we'll just renotice it when we figure out what will be the proper date. So instead of the motion to amend, what we typically do is a procedural shortcut called the friendly amendment, and I'm guessing that's what this board will largely do. It's just a simpler alternative to the motion to amend, and all it requires is someone to say, I'd like to suggest a friendly amendment to have the Finance Committee be 10 members. And then the person who made the original motion for 7 members and the person who seconded the original motion for 7 members has to agree. And then at that point, you're good. Now the motion on the floor is for the 10 members. If the person who makes the motion, the original motion, or the seconder of the original motion does not agree to the friendly amendment, then it does not pass, and that is not the motion on the floor. Then typically what would happen is the person who made the friendly amendment would say, okay, then I'll make a motion to amend and put it to the larger vote to see if they can get that amendment through. So you do have to pay attention to making sure that you do get the approval of those two. There was a recent meeting where someone made a friendly amendment and only the maker of the original motion agreed, and the seconder did not ever agree, but it went forward as a friendly amendment, and really technically it shouldn't have. They should have then gone ahead with a motion to amend. So I love the friendly amendment, and I hope you do too. It's just a nice way to, I think, conduct business a little bit more efficiently. But do know that you have the other option. And I think sometimes if a friendly amendment doesn't go through, people then just kind of stop and say, okay, well, I guess we have to vote on the original motion. But you can always do a motion to amend. You also can always withdraw a motion at any time. If you've made a motion and you later just decide, yeah, I don't like this, you can just withdraw it and it will be immediately withdrawn. The chair can then ask the person who seconded the motion or anyone else if they would like to make the motion instead, and then you would just start over again with a new motion process. And when it gets really fun is when you have multiple motions on the floor at one time. So you should only have up to 3 because otherwise it just gets a little out of control. And you would vote on the third. So the last motion that is made, you vote first on that. So it goes in reverse order. And I just run through it with the prior examples. So if the original motion was the motion to set up the Finance Committee of 7 members, then the second motion was 10 members, and then the third substitute motion was to hire the CPA instead. So you would vote first on number 3 to hire the CPA instead. Now, because that's a substitute motion, if that passes, it's done. The other 2 are just, they're moot, they're not on the table anymore. If that does not pass, then you would move back to number 2, which was the motion for 10 members. And if that passes, then you move back to number 1, as I said, because then you have to vote on the original amendment, the original motion as amended. And if number 2 didn't pass for the motion to amend to have 10 members, then you would revert back to the first motion, which was for 7 members, and that would be the motion on the table. So we go in reverse order, and it's just important to note whether it was a substitute motion or a motion to amend. Most of your items are going to be, I think, just a majority vote. Some legislative actions require 4 affirmative votes, but I think the most of yours are just majority. So you can vote yes, no, recuse, or abstain, and we already talked about the difference between recusal and abstention. If you join the meeting late and you've missed one of the items, you can't go back and vote on that item. If you've come in late and it's halfway through, if it's a quasi-judicial proceeding, you would not be able to vote on that because, as I said, your vote is based upon the evidence in the record, and you haven't had an opportunity to hear or see that evidence. So you would then just wait for the next item. I think that's about it. It sometimes happens that if there are only 6 of you, we always are like, oh no, there's only 6, because a tie vote can be kind of a, and it's just not the best circumstance. But basically that just means that the motion fails. A tie vote cannot pass a motion. Most of yours, I said, is a simple majority vote. There's a roll call vote, so you'll have to state your vote yes or no publicly on the record. And if you miss a meeting that's continued to a later date, which does sometimes happen, you can choose to vote at the continued meeting if you go back and watch the entire tape of the first proceeding, and then when you come, you would need to disclose to the members of the public and to your fellow board members that you feel that you can go ahead and vote because you have watched the tape and you feel prepared. We kind of just zoomed through that, didn't we? Those are really the key, I think, points of Rosenberg's rules. There are a number of other motions and things, and when I watched him today, I was like I said, I mean, I just don't think those things are going to happen, and I hope they don't happen, but if they do, I can guide you through it, and we'll get it done. And I think just at the end of what you're hoping for at the end of the meeting, and that you've run a good meeting, is that you've told the public what your body is going to do, then you've kept them informed while you're doing it, and then when you have acted, you tell the body what you did. Tell the public what you did. And that's really the goal, and a lot of it about these rules and procedures is for you guys, but it's also for members of the public so that they know what to expect when they come to a meeting. All of our boards and commissions run the same way. They are aware of when they get to make their public comment. They get to understand the back and forth that happens, and then they know that you're going to clearly announce the vote. And we also announce, we should add this to, is this added to yours? We also announce whether or not, at the vote, whether or not it's an appealable action. And if a person would like to appeal, they generally have 10 days, and we'll cite to that zoning code section. Just again, to make sure that everybody's aware of their rights to appeal if they would like to do so. And that's all I have for today. Do you have anything, Susie?
I just want to add on that it's always okay to ask the questions during the meeting. Chances are, if you have a question about the process, whether or not I can answer it, or whomever's sitting in my seat or helping over there at the with our admin staff, whether we can answer it, if we can't answer it, we can pause for a few minutes and try to get a hold of our city attorney's office, whether it's Ashley or one of her counterparts, if she's not at the meeting. So I just really want to encourage people to not be shy, to push that speaker on, and if you've got a question, let's get it answered. Again, chances are somebody else has the same question. And we hear that all the time, right? In this case, I think it's going to be really true. And I think that's it. Chair Jones-Carter, it's your show.
I may have a clarification for question, sorry. I think for us, it's a little bit different. When we want to make a motion, we have to state what the city has presented. And then, is that what you were saying earlier when you were talking about clearly stating what it is that you're voting on? Because when we make a motion, we have to read this whole thing.
Yes, that's correct. So you'll generally have a resolution, and so you will make a motion of the City of Santa Rosa approving a resolution, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the title, then you say, and waive for the reading of the text, so that you don't have to read the entire 10-page resolution. So you're correct. My example was a little bit more informal, but you will typically be moving your resolutions for consideration.
I think I found that people are a little bit nervous to make motions because they don't know what to do initially, so feel free. Drew will help you, so.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is like Melanie mentioned, what's really important is reading that title of the thing and then say waive the reading of the text. But if, like, for instance, in the resolution, there's a condition in there already, for instance, like maybe that got added or whatever, you can actually, in the making of the motion, you can say waive the reading of the text, except for condition number 5 under blah, 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 and like say the thing that you want to change, if that's something that you wanted to bring forward. Otherwise, typically what we do is we just start the discussion process and then we come up with shalls and considers.
Yes.
And those become the conditions of approval that get tacked on at the end of the resolution, in addition to all the kind of mumbo jumbo from the planning staff. That's always there. You know, like follow the tree ordinance, follow the water ordinance, right? Follow the engineering determination or whatever it is. Yeah. So anyway, very important to remember.
Any other questions? Wow, okay.
I was just gonna say, I think as long as I've been on this board, I think I've only had like 2 withdrawn motions ever. And it was because we couldn't get a friendly amendment thing worked out. And so we had to withdraw it and then restart it with a different seconder. And then that person who was the seconder vote ended up voting no, because they were just stuck on something. So I think that's how we've typically handled it. I've never done a substitute motion ever. And we typically just do friendly amendments to just kind of speed the process up. So.
Yeah, I mean, the substitute motion is effective and it's very fast as well. I mean, in that instance too, that sounds interesting. Withdrawing, I mean, that's one way, or someone could have just done a motion to amend as well, which probably would have been a little bit more proper.
Cleaner.
But there are many ways to get it done. And
Yeah, I think it was, at the time, there was a very emotionally charged element. It was much easier to just withdraw it and then kind of redo it. Like kind of hit the reset button, if you will. Yeah, but yeah, so no, I mean, it's nice to be refreshed on the amended motion and the substitute as potential options if we were to get stuck, which
Yeah.
doesn't tend to happen.
I think those are, the 3 most straightforward, but just do remember, sometimes people forget when they do the motion to amend, and then everyone says, yeah, I agree, then they feel like they just voted on that. Don't forget to go back to the original motion, that it's a 2-step process.
The only other comment I had is for public comment, we tend not to respond to public comment. I mean, we take note of it, but we don't go back to the speaker and say something.
No, thank you for clarifying. I didn't intend to say that you go back to the speaker, but
Okay.
rather that when public comment is happening, you keep note of the comments, and then when it comes back to your board for discussion, then the chair can say, so we heard comments from the public. They would like to have balconies. They hate the design of this. They want to know X, Y, and Z. And so then you can just, weave those into your discussion, or, sometimes at the Planning Commission, I mean, the chair will just say, this is what I heard from the public. Staff, can you help me address those? Just so that the public that came to speak, that they know that you're hearing them and you're trying to get them the answers without going to back and forth. But you wouldn't say, Joe so-and-so said this. It was just more of a grouping of the ideas, and then you would look to staff to say, hey, can you get us some answers? They wanted to know how many trees are being removed or something like that. But thank you. Yeah, you definitely don't want to go back and forth with them.
Thank you.
I was just going to add, that's a great point. Melanie is actually fantastic about not engaging with the public, and not in a mean way, but like staying within the confines of the meeting. But what she's also really good about, and what we've done for a long time on this board, is we tend to have a lot of confusion over the intersection between discretionary entitlement and land use. And so when that happens, it's best to defer to staff to help sort that out, because a lot of times people have missed the Planning Commission meeting and then they come to this meeting, and then they're all hopped up about land use, and you're like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. This isn't a land use meeting. This is a discretionary entitlement meeting. And those are two different actions. So that does happen fairly often. And
That
so,
is a great point. Yeah, thank you for that. It's a good reminder to say, you know, what is and what is not within the purview of your body. And that comes up all the time at the other boards too. It's something that the Planning Commission often has to push back on, or, you know, when there are by right housing and you really have no authority whatsoever to impose certain conditions. That's a good reminder, you know, to bring as the chair as well, just to make sure everybody's aware of the limits of what you guys can do up there and what's your charge.
Yeah. If there are no further questions, then I would like to open public comment.
Seeing no one in chambers, I believe we will have no public comment.
I'd like to close public comment. Okay. Item 10, we are adjourned.